I'm joined by our CBS 17 digital data reporter, Jody McCreary. Now, Jody, today you're looking at power companies that are facing a deadline to increase their percentage of renewable energy by the end of the year. So start by telling me about the REPS law. What is it?
Sure. Well, basically, it goes back to answer the simple question is what are power companies using to burn, to consume, to make electricity?
Okay.
And what the REPS law does is it wants power companies to use renewable resources like solar power or like hydropower to produce more and more energy as we go forward. The law was passed in 2007, and it's a graduated scale. It goes up a little bit every couple of years,
Okay.
from 3% renewable energy to 6 to 9, and then at the end of this year, the power companies that are owned by investors must be using at least 12.5% renewable sources like solar power or hydropower. Now, the power companies we've talked to, Duke Energy is the main one, the largest in the country.
Right.
They're at about 11.8% using renewable resources. And they're confident they'll get the 12.5 by the end of the year. But it's a good thing to keep an eye on as we move forward.
Now, this is a really cool graphic that you've made. Can you explain this to me?
Sure. The main question we had going into this story was where does the energy and the electricity come from for the state? What are the fuels that are used to produce it? And what we found, going back 20 or 30 years, coal for much of that time was the key, the main fuel that was used in our power plants. And as we got into the middle of the 1990s, into the 2000s, nuclear power was a leading generator of electricity. And then about 10 years ago, natural gas prices fell so low, it became so cheap to pipe it into our state, that it became one of the leading sources of energy for the power plants. And it was the number one last year. But the increase in solar has been exponential over the past 5 or 6 years due to lower prices for production and the general push toward renewable green energy.
Makes sense. So now tell me, did you find any other trends when you were looking deeper into these energy numbers?
Yes, well, the main trend was sort of the fall of coal as a key driver in energy production, in electricity production, and the surge in natural gas as the top producer, and nuclear power, of course, also being in that mix. And the push of hydropower and solar power have become very important sources for electricity going forward.